What is up, YouTube? It's Spooky Loops, and I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. I've been playing Dead by Daylight for close to 4 years now.
4 long years.
And overall, the time that I've spent in Dead by Daylight, of course it is normal to accumulate some opinions on things that you wish could be changed in the game. As I'm making this video right now, there are currently 30 killers in Dead by Daylight, with the Night being the most recent killer that just came out. So for today's video, I wanted to do something a little different, and I want to tell you how I would change all 30 killers in Dead by Daylight. Okay, before we get started here, obviously these are all my opinions, and we're going to be going over some killers that personally don't really need any changes. They're actually in really good spots. Maybe some minor tweaks here and there. Ultimately, some of these concepts and changes are just for fun. We'll probably never make it to the real game. The point of this video is to go over some changes I think would be great for all killers in this game, lowering down the oppressiveness on some killers, but also raising some of the lower tier ones. Make the interaction between both survivor and killer a lot of fun. And of course, I'd love to hear what you guys say down in the comments. Alright, starting first is going to be the Trapper. Now, obviously, this killer's been in the game since the beginning of time. He is the poster child of the game. And not too long ago, the Trapper had a couple of things reworked as far as his add-ons go. And of course, the Dead Hard change was an immediate buff to Trapper because survivors could no longer Dead Hard through his traps, which was also massive. But the biggest thing, and I know myself and a lot of other creators have been asking for, is to allow the Trapper to start with all of his traps at the very beginning of the trial. Now, our boy Evan does have an add-on called the Trapper Sack, which allows you to start with all of them, but the downside is once the trap is placed, it can no longer be picked up. I can count numerous times where I can see traps on the other side of the map where I would never ever go out there to go pick them up because there's no reason to patrol that area because maybe a gen's done or just way in the corner of the map, and I would lose pressure by leaving that area just to get a trap, so I use the traps that are in my close vicinity. So yes, have the Trapper start with all of his traps. Immediate change would be great. Taking it a step further, however, currently if you have an injured survivor step on one of your traps and they are able to successfully free themselves, what happens? The trap becomes decommissioned, and you have to go all the way back over there and reset the trap. And the survivor really lost nothing but a little bit of their time. They still remain injured. My suggested change for that is if an injured survivor steps on one of your traps, now keep in mind, they have to be injured already, and they step on one of your traps, they immediately go into the dying state after they free themselves. We're pretty much making the Honing Stone add-on base kit for only injured survivors. Now, obviously, if they're freed by a teammate, then they're going to be able to get picked right back up. However, if they free themselves, they go into the dying state, which allows a Trapper to maintain pressure and momentum, even if a survivor is injured and is down on the other side of the map. Now, of course, once they go into the dying state, they can start using things like Unbreakable, Boon Exponential, No Mither, things of that nature to pick themselves up. And I don't know when this is going to happen, but DVD did talk about having base kit Unbreakable come to the game, which would be okay for both sides. It would make the Trapper a little bit more rewarding, especially for laying a good trap down on the other side of the map that he just can't get to at the moment. Moving on to the Wraith. Now, when I was writing my script for this and trying to come up with ways to change each killer, I ran into a couple issues because there's some killers that really don't need to be changed. I think their power's pretty cool and pretty balanced. Now, to be completely fair, if there's one killer that gets bullied the most when it comes to things like flashlights, it is the Wraith for sure. My change is short and sweet. The Wraith can no longer be light burned if his decloaking has reached at least 50%. Right now, if the Wraith is completely cloaked and he's not decloaking, burn him all you want. But once he goes and he gets past 50% of decloaking, the flashlight no longer has any burn effect to it, allowing him to be able to go ahead and not have to dodge behind trees and things of that nature, so we can actually use his power. Moving on to the Hillbilly. This one is also something that has been highly demanded by a lot of people that play this game, or a lot of Billy enthusiasts that are out there. Simple change: remove the overheat mechanic. About a year or so ago, Behavior introduced an overheat mechanic so that Hillbilly wasn't able to consistently rev his chainsaw and stuff like that. Now there's situations where you're gonna look down at your power gauge to get an idea of like, okay, like I don't think I'm gonna be able to make the saw because my chainsaw is going to overheat. Get rid of the overheat mechanic. Another thing that I would like to do to change the Hillbilly is to improve the steering at base kit. I personally believe that Billy is the hardest mechanically in Dead by Daylight. A lot of people say it's the nurse. I don't believe it is. I think Hillbilly 100% takes a lot of practice and a lot of time to learn how to use his ability. And I think that's the reason as to why you don't see Hillbilly that often. A lot of new players are going to gravitate towards some of the other killers because they're just simply easier to play. So my suggested change is to improve steering at base kit, kind of similar to the yellow add-on Dad's Boots, so that it's more enjoyable for all players of all different skill levels. Now, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, not every change is going to improve killers. I think we need to tone some of them down. Up next is the Nurse, arguably the strongest killer in Dead by Daylight currently. But before we get into that, let's hear from today's sponsor, Keeps. Have you ever been so stressed out you've thought, I'm gonna lose my hair over this? Well, the good news is that's usually just a figure of speech. The bad news is most men usually start to experience hair loss at age 35. But don't worry, my guys, Keeps has got us covered. Keeps is a subscription service that offers clinically proven, research-backed treatments to stop hair loss and improve hair growth. And that's really important, being that 2 out of 3 guys will start experiencing that hair loss in the middle of their life. With Keeps, you can get quality expert care without ever visiting a doctor's office or a pharmacy. And the best part is all treatment plans are recommended by a licensed medical provider, delivered straight to your door. Whether you're looking to prevent hair loss, stimulate your hair growth, or just take better care of the hair that you have, Keeps has got you covered. They also have an award-winning all-natural thickening shampoo and conditioner system with decisions to help you stay on top of your hair goals. Hair loss stops with Keeps. To get 50% off your first order, go to keeps.com/spookyloops or click the link in the description. That's keeps.com/spookyloops. Take care of your hair or get it back. It's worth it. Hey, you're still here. Cool. I think we all know why the nurse is the strongest killer in the game. And the reason as to why is because the rules of the realm do not apply to her. She's able to blink through many walls and surfaces and structures and is pretty difficult to counter. The first change that I would like to do, and this is something that's been recommended by the community as well, is to make all nurse blink attacks special attacks. Currently right now, exposed perks and nurse blinks are extremely deadly. So by making all of her blink special attacks, she would no longer be able to proc the value of Haunted Ground, Starstruck, No One Escapes Death, things of that nature. Another suggested change that I really liked when I saw it comes from Dylan KG. I'll leave his link down in the description. Awesome DVD creator. The suggestion that he made was the second blink that the nurse can use can no longer go through structures, meaning that the first blink goes through surfaces and walls, but the second blink no longer can do so. I personally think that would be a fantastic change and offers a lot more counterplay for the survivors. If the nurse was unsuccessful on making an attack off of their first blink, they can only blink staying within the surface, making all the rules of the realm apply to her on the second blink. Let's talk about Michael Myers. Early game Michael Myers is okay. However, the only thing that I would change with that is to bring him to 110% movement speed, up from 105. As far as getting to the peak of his power at Evil Within 3, a couple of things that I would like to suggest to change. Currently right now, once Michael Myers is in Evil Within 3, he has an increased lunge, he vaults windows a little bit faster. He also has the ability to one-shot survivors because they are all currently exposed. To be more on brand and fitting, just like he is in the franchise, I would also grant him the ability to one-kick pallets, one-kick generators, and also one-kick doors, being the trade-off that he has to stalk survivors a little bit more than he currently does to obtain Evil Within 3. Let's talk about the Hag. Obviously, the Hag is able to place traps all around the map, and certain choke points and things of that nature where she's able to teleport to and apply pressure all over the place. Now, depending on what kind of add-on she has, it can be kind of a problem, especially when you have range add-ons mixed with a thing like Make Your Choice. Right now, if the Hag is at least 32 meters away from the hook, but she has a trap nearby, survivor can come in, go for the save, and she still has time to go ahead and teleport there and hit that person instantly. I think that puts the survivor in a really bad spot. So my recommended changes for the Hag would be her ability to not be able to place traps near hooks. We also have newer killers that came to the game, like the Artist and the Dredge, where their power is actually suppressed from being used so that the survivor team can get an unhook relatively safely. Up next is the Doctor. Now, the Doctor's pretty solid after the rework they received not too long ago, so this change is really more on the fun side. I just recently made a video about the hallucinations that occur whenever a survivor is in madness, and you can, if you want to, you can check that video out right there. It's actually a lot of fun. Currently, what happens is when a survivor sees a hallucination, they are static. They don't move, they don't do anything, and sometimes they spawn in some really weird spots that obviously just look silly. So a fun way that I'd like to change a Doctor, since that we know that certain AI pathing exists with behavior, is to have those hallucinations actually start to run around. Could you imagine being on Midwich and looking down the hallway and seeing a hallucination of a Doctor running towards you? I think that'd be really cool, especially making survivors second guess themselves on what's real and what isn't. Moving on to the Huntress. The Huntress, not to be biased, I think is in a really good spot. She's pretty balanced. Of course, yeah, we would like to have more precise hitboxes, because I'll even admit some of the hits that occur with those hatchets are a little weird. Not gonna lie. As far as her ability, she's very basic, to the point, black and white, nice and easy. The only thing that I would ever change about the Huntress is Iridescent Head. A while back, the Iridescent Head was nerfed so that you can no longer carry any more than one, regardless of add-ons. I think it was a missed opportunity. What I think should happen to Iridescent Head is the players should not be limited to how many hatchets they can hold. However, the exposed one-shot hatchet would only apply if the shot was thrown from outside of 20 meters. We currently have the Death Slinger that has an add-on called the Iridescent Coin, where if he shoots a survivor from at least 12 meters away, upon reeling them back in, they're exposed. I think it was a really big missed opportunity that they could do something cool like that, rewarding the player for a really good shot. Let's talk about our boy from Texas, Bubba. Biggest complaint I think the entire community can probably agree on is camping, base camping, things of that nature. Being that Bubba can stand right next to a hook survivor, when a teammate comes in to go for the save, he can charge up his chainsaw, hit the rescuer, chew through borrowed time, and still have enough sweeps and charges to go ahead and tunnel that person again. when you try to think of ways to combat the camping, there's a couple of things that come to mind. Ostarva made a really good point on one of his videos where he has suggested an idea where Bubba loses all of his charges if he's within a certain meter range from a hook survivor, which I also think is a great idea. Another thing I think would be really cool to help out the survivors in this kind of disadvantage, if Bubba tries to charge his chainsaw between 8 to 10 meters or something like that, that all of the strikes that he does with the chainsaw will put survivors only into deep wounds. Now, of course, if he wants to stay outside of 12 meters, then obviously he still has some sizable distance that he's going to have to sweep through to get close enough and stuff like that. But I think that'd be a really good way, especially because killers like the Dredge can't teleport to a locker that's near hook by at least 12 meters. Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger upon release was really bad. And his power was more in line with how he is in the films. However, in a Dead by Daylight 4 versus 1 asymmetrical game, it wasn't really the best. So he was changed to what he currently is today with a couple minor tweaks along the way. The only real change that comes to mind for me is just make Freddy Robert Englund in the game. That's it. Okay, we're moving on to the pig. A lot of things come to mind about the pig. A lot of them usually are pretty bad. Yes, she has an in-game slowdown mechanic, which is the reverse bear traps. When you put a trap on a survivor's head, once the next generator is powered on, that trap becomes active, and then they have a certain amount of time to go ahead and get that trap off out of the 5 jigsaw boxes that are scattered around the map. All the films that are from the Saw franchise, where obviously Maddie Young, the pig, is from, are all about survivors having to really do insane things to stay alive. I think this is kind of fun, but to stay on brand, here's my suggested change. If a healthy survivor has a reverse bear trap on and they go to a jigsaw box, they're greeted with an option to instantly remove their reverse bear trap with the exchange of losing a health state. And then they would stay broken until the next generator is powered on. Obviously, if that broken survivor is hooked, when they come off the hook, they are no longer broken. If a survivor refuses that option or is already injured, then they would go through the traditional means of removing that reverse bear trap like they currently do now in the game. I think these changes are very on brand for the Saw franchise. A true make your choice. Looks like we're going to the circus. Let's talk about the clown. When the clown was reworked a while back, he was given a secondary bottle, which was the Afterpiece Antidote, and that was kind of like a haste bottle. So he was able to throw the bottle on the ground. It takes a second to plume, and then he gets in it, and he gets haste. He speeds up a little bit, which is really kind of a unique way for him to speed up around corners or really small, trashy loops. But on the downside is the survivor can also get the haste effect when they run into the gas as well, too. I think it's kind of a missed opportunity there. So how I would change the clown is I would only allow him to carry 2 yellow bottles. Yellow bottles, or the Afterpiece Antidote, would no longer grant haste, but instead cause a survivor to lose a health state if they stayed in the gas for a certain period of time. Being that the clown can only carry 2 of these bottles, obviously what we'd have to do is we'd have to increase the range of how far the gas spreads to really make the best bang for its buck. This can be used as a new way to zone survivors or to cut off specific tiles. Also, as far as add-ons, I would remove the hindered effect from Redhead Pinky Finger. That's just me, though. Up next is the Spirit. Now, the Spirit from back when I first started playing Dead by Daylight was the shit. She was super difficult to deal with. She had a bunch of really insane add-ons. Not saying that she's still not very strong. She's one of the best killers in the game. But I think things have gotten a lot better, especially because back in the day, she used to have collision with survivors while she was phase walking and know exactly where they were. But right now, in her current state with her add-ons and stuff like that, I think she's okay. So the only change that I would ever do to the Spirit is going to be on the survivor side, for the survivors to be granted better directional audio. While the Spirit is phasing, survivors are generally having to take a 50-50. By having more precise directional audio, getting an idea where she's coming from, I think that would probably be the best way to change her. Or another way to do that is while she is phasing, to have little blips of static appearances as she goes along during her pathing. Moving on up to the most edgy teens in the game, the Legion. 6 or so months ago, the Legion got changed, and I think they're in a really good spot. They had their power cooldowns reworked, a whole bunch of their add-ons were changed. I think right now, aside from them being tremendously boring to play against, they're in a really good spot. The only change that I would ever make for the Legion is to close the distance from when a Legion fast vaults a window with Feral Frenzy that a survivor can't go in and tuck right behind them. That's about it. I'm almost positive they use the same Quentin model hands as they did for Susie, so we'll probably change those too. We're going to talk about the Plague. This one's going to be short and sweet. The only thing that I would change about the Plague is to lower the volume of her power while using Corrupt Purge. The whispering is so loud you can't hear Hatch. You can't hear footsteps. You can barely hear anything. Audio's way too loud. I would lower that for sure. Simple change. I'm gonna talk about my boy Ghostface. Ghostface was changed about 6 months ago. I think he's good. I think he's in a good spot. But if we're, this is a video about how I would change Ghostface, and I think I'm gonna jump right off the deep end here and suggest something that's a little out there. So bear with me. How I would change the Ghostface in a fun way is Ghostface would be the first killer in Dead by Daylight to be undetectable permanently. He would have no red stain, no heartbeat, no terror radius, nothing. with the trade-off that his marking progress would start to decay after 20 seconds of not fully exposing somebody. That would remove the concept of 99ing survivors, which I know this for a fact that farming stocks and getting everyone to 99% is pretty evil strategy. Don't kill me in the comments. I thought it would be a fun idea. Think about it. Fully stealth, always having to be on the lookout all the time. Pretty cool. The Demogorgon. Very balanced. I think he's in an awesome spot. Super fun to play. First change that I would make, bring him back to DBD so people can buy him and play him and enjoy him. In all seriousness, the only thing I would change about the Demogorgon is to increase his undetectable status effect when he is emerging from a portal for a little bit longer, just so he can get a little bit more of an edge on survivors, especially if he has portals placed in good spots. Up next is the Oni. I think he's in a great spot. Obviously, when he first came out in the PTB, he was insane. So maybe bringing back his ability for the average Joes like ourselves to be able to 90-degree flick without having to blow things off our desk. Aside from that, I think Oni's in an awesome spot. No changes or cosmetics. Okay, the Deathslinger. The Deathslinger is still a good killer, but he is a shadow of what he used to be. For the longest time, the Deathslinger had a super unique playstyle. His tear radius was only 24 meters, which was, at the time, one of the smallest in the game. And he was able to aim down his sights super fast, like so. He was really good at zoning survivors, forcing them to make bad decisions, and always keeping them on their toes, because he can instantly go from aiming down sights to then going and just striking you with a basic attack. But Behavior thought that that was too oppressive, so what they did is they boosted up his tear radius to a standard 32 meters, and they also added a delay to aiming down sights. So now he goes up, and he goes back down super slow. So no more of that quick scoping ADS style of gameplay. Also, being that he was a range killer, he was given a 4.4 meters per second movement speed. Firstly, I do agree with the nerf to the aiming down sights. Quick scoping stuff was a little too much, so here's how I would change the Deathslinger. Keep the aiming down sights the same. However, bring his movement speed up to 4.6 meters per second, and also bring back down his tear radius to 24 meters. I think he was in a really good spot. It gave you a lot of really fun things you can do and always kept survivors kind of on their toes, because you can run that with monitor and abuse and make that tear radius even smaller when you weren't in chase. As far as his movement speed while he's aiming down sights, I think we can bring that down 0.2 meters per second to kind of compensate for him being so fast up at 115 when he's moving and traversing the map normally. I think that'd be a really good spot for him. All right, Pyramid Head, or the Executioner. I think power-wise, Pyramid Head is fantastic. However, I would rework every single add-on that he has, excluding the range add-ons. I would change Pyramid Head and give us some variety of add-ons that do something other than nothing. An example to some of the add-ons that I would change, I would give him an add-on that a survivor becomes exhausted when they interact with the Trails of Torment on the ground. I would also give him an add-on that decreases the time from transitioning from Rites of Judgment to a basic attack, kind of how he used to be before he had that really big nerf where he was able to kind of zone and then strike from that way. But he has no add-ons like that currently in the game, and that's 100% what I would do. Bring his booty back too, probably. Okay, we're going to talk about another top-tier killer, the Blight. The Blight is easily one of the strongest killers in the game. His add-ons range from absolutely bonkers to still even really good, even in the lower tiers. For balance purposes, I would tighten his turning radius to compensate for his high mobility. Something similar to the turning radius that is allowed during the Adrenaline Vial, and how with that add-on you get 7 rushes in total. However, you have a much more constricted turning radius, and I think that would be a really good spot if we applied that restriction to him all the way across the board to make up for him being so damn fast and so powerful against survivors. Okay, the Twins. God damn, do I feel so bad for these two. They had such an awful start when they first came to the game. Their PTB was awful, their release was even worse, and they have like the lowest pick rate in the game, and they have such a cool design that it's such a shame. I think there's only like 7 Twins mains in the entire planet. Unless we are on the brink of a massive Twins buff that is coming, which I honestly hope they do, some things have to change. And here's how I would change them. A typical match of the Twins is this. You release Victor, Victor goes and pounces on a survivor, and then the survivor holds on to Victor and holds him hostage the entire time. Yes, are they incapacitated so they can't work on gens or interact with teammates or do totems and stuff like that? But the entire time is now Charlotte, keep in mind, is in the idle state, has to, one, catch up to where the survivor is, and she has no power. She's a basic mouse one killer or basic attack killer at that point. And only after a certain amount of time that has elapsed that you can recall Victor off of the survivor and bring them back to you. There's either 2 ways I'd like to change the Twins that I think would really help out. Here's the first one. To punish survivors for holding on to Victor for extended periods of time, Victor can put a survivor into the dying state after 20 seconds. This will incentivize the survivor to remove Victor and return it power back to Charlotte in a timely manner. The survivor ignores to peel Victor off of their back and they go into the dying state, then Victor will be recalled and put back into Charlotte. and then will be able to be used again after 30 seconds has passed. The second option is if Victor is on a survivor's back, they can no longer fast vault pallets or windows. Similar to being chained by Pinhead, vaulting over a pallet will be the slow animation, and then all window vaults will be medium. Let's be honest, you have this 3-foot tall demon thing gnawing on a survivor's back. There has to be some downside and some credibility for them being able to land that attack, which allows Charlotte to catch up and then dominate survivors inside of specific tiles. Moving on to the final 7 left in the video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. If you're not subscribed already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Helps me out tremendously as we're on our quest to hit 500,000 subscribers. Okay, the Trickster. Similar to the Twins, Trickster's PTB and launch was awful. Trickster was really, really bad. However, they tweaked a whole bunch of stuff. They changed a lot of things to his rate of fire and as far as his speed while he's using his blades. I think overall he's pretty good. Just like any other killer in the game, he's got weaknesses and he's got strengths, and he's really, really strong, especially in small, unsafe areas like, you know, cars or trash loops and things of that nature. Biggest thing that's always bothered me, and the first thing that I would change about the Trickster, is that main event is to be deployed at the request of the player, not at the 20th blade connected to the survivor. Currently how it works, every 20th blade that you connect will automatically start main event, which means you have 30 seconds to go ahead and activate that ability. You have an unlimited amount of knives that you throw, and of course, like, you know, your movement speed slows down, yada, yada, yada. Only reason as to why I believe that behavior did not make main event to be deployed at the user's request is so that they can't sit at a hook, wait for someone to go for an unsave, and then just go and just light them both up. So make it the same thing. Make it similar to like the Artist or the Dredge, where they can't deploy their power if they're within a range of 12 meters or something like that. Make it 12, 14, 15 meters, whatever it is, so that, you know, the survivor can get a safe rescue without getting just mowed down by a camping Trickster. There's been plenty of times where I've had survivors make mistakes and end up in really, really bad spots, and I wish I had main event on command. I could fire it up and go ahead and use my ability right there. I think that would make the Trickster really, really fun and really, really cool, and also be extremely punishing at the right times and reward you for saving it for an appropriate time. All right, we're gonna move on to the big boy, the Nemesis. Ever since the Nemesis was released, I've always found it a little frustrating to have to chew through 3 health states, especially on the first original Jaces, because you have to infect survivors with the T-Virus by using your Tentacle Strike. There's only really 2 things I would change about the Nemesis. 1, on first contact of the Tentacle Strike, survivor will no longer gain haste. If I'm not gonna take a health state, survivor should not get the boost of speed. They can go ahead and take the hit and then use whatever pallets or things like that and start playing a little bit more safe so they don't actually lose a health state. The next thing that I would change is the difference between Mutation 2 and Mutation 3 Tentacle Strike is 1 meter. That is it, as Mutation 2 already gives you the ability to break pallets and walls and things like that. So what I would do is Mutation 3, every single strike, regardless if you are infected or not, will take a health state by using Tentacle Strike. Keep it at the 6 meters or whatever it is. Mutation 3 needs to be the end-all, be-all, the climax of the power. So once the player is able to get to Mutation 3, every hit that is used with Tentacle Strike will always take a health state, regardless if you are infected or not. All right, moving on to the Cenobite, or Pinhead. Generally, Pinhead dominates the solo queue experience, solely because survivors in solo queue have little to no communication or visuals as far as who is going for the box prior to a chain hunt. Compensate for that, an interesting change I think would be that the chain hunt can only affect survivors performing conspicuous actions. So if a survivor is healing, working on a generator, booning or cleansing a totem, unhooking a survivor, then the chain hunt would only affect them then. Now that's not to say that a survivor can just go, okay, I'm gonna get off the gen or whatever, and then they no longer get harassed by chains. If the chain hunt has already begun while the survivor is performing conspicuous action, then they will go through the chain hunt like normal. I know that can seem like a massive nerf to the chain hunt. However, what I would suggest is to remove the actual timer from all the survivor portraits. So the only way that they know that the chain hunt is about to begin is with the standard visual and audible cues that they get currently now. Okay, moving on to the Artist. I think the Artist is in a really good spot. She's a really, really strong killer. The only thing that I would ever change is I would remove the aura of flying crows that are shot from outside of 24 meters. So she has an add-on called the Charcoal Stick, which eliminates all auras, which is nice. I think removing the aura from flying crows from outside of 24 meters is going to reward the player for a really, really good shot. And also, it keeps survivors kind of like always having to dodge and try to figure out exactly where those crows are going to be coming from. Yeah, you don't see the aura of hatchets coming, so why not? And a little bonus change is the Artist should be the only killer in Dead by Daylight that doesn't disturb crows on the map. Think about it. She's the bird lady. All right, let's talk about one of the newer-ish killers that came to the game is Sadako, or the Onryo. Currently, right now, I know there's a lot of really tricky ways that you can take advantage of the Onryo's power with specific add-ons, as you can see from the notorious One Pump Willie, who is like the best Sadako player in the world. It's got like over 1 million Moris in the game with using Condemned. But aside from running those add-ons, I feel that her power is very dull and kind of useless. To change that, here's what I would do. The moment a survivor performs a conspicuous action, like we talked about earlier, which is like doing a gen or a totem or anything like that, anything that progresses the game, the condemned starts growing. And on top of that, I would make it so that the condemned increases in a faster rate. That would force survivors to have to interact with the tape so they can go in and end that condemned and then have it restart once they get back on a generator. Not only would that provide a in-game slowdown for the Onryo, so they wouldn't have to rely on such impressive generator perks and slowdowns and things of that nature, it'll also give the opportunity for the player to be able to teleport, to shut certain TVs down, etc., etc. And another thing that I would change is that survivors can no longer hold a tape plus an item. Similar to the Lambent configuration, they have to put their item down to grab a tape and leave it on the ground and risk having someone else take it, or obviously dying in the process trying to get it back. Okay, getting towards the end here, let's talk about the Dredge. This killer has a lot of really cool qualities that I personally really enjoy. But firstly, let's talk about Nightfall. The first change that I would make to Nightfall is it's supposed to be super scary and super dark, and the first time ever in DBD where something in the environment is completely shifted for the survivors. So what I would do for that is I would completely eliminate the white glow that survivors can see from their teammates' auras. I would also darken the tones of the Dredge so that he doesn't stand out, so he's a little bit more ominous, a little bit harder to spot during Nightfall, so it makes that event really scary. Another thing that I would change is when the Dredge is teleporting to a locker, if there is a duo set of lockers, one that is locked and one that is unlocked, for some reason behavior made it so that the Dredge will always teleport to the locked conjoined locker. I don't think that the Dredge should be penalized because the survivors didn't lock both sides. I think survivors should have to lock both doors, and if the Dredge breaks the locks, then so be it. But the Dredge should be able to teleport to the locker of their choosing and not be automatically forced to go to one that is locked, even though they went to the one that is unlocked. Final two, Albert Wesker, the Mastermind. One of my favorite killers in the game. I think he's a lot of fun. He's definitely been improved from where he was on the PTB from launch and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think he's in a fantastic spot. He's super fun to play. The only real change, I think it's kind of a little overboard, because I don't think it's entirely necessary, is if Wesker had the ability to dash again after vaulting a pallet or a window using his power. Obviously, there'd have to be some form of cooldown after you vaulted the window or the pallet so the survivor has some chance to get away. But if there's a way to find like a happy medium there, I think that could be a cool change. All right, the 30th killer of this video. We went through 29 so far. Let's talk about the newest killer, the Knight. Where do I begin? I want to like this guy so much because aesthetically, he's super badass on paper. His power seems super cool. You have all these different guards that do all these different things. Holy cow, he's not that great. He's really not. When using the Knight's power, here's essentially what happens. The Knight has to come to a complete standstill and go and put his sword into the ground, so he is immobilized. All the while, his target is creating distance. You then have to cast the waypoint of your guards and where you want them to patrol. So when a survivor sees exactly which way the guards are going to be patrolling, they just cut to the opposite direction. So obviously that strategy is not super duper effective. So let's say you try a short form strategy where you just dump a guard into the middle of the tile that you're looping around. The guard itself emits an aggro radius. Now, of course, they're bigger and smaller depending on which guard it is, but the survivors can see that aggro radius as well. So similar to the waypoint that you cast in the beginning, they know just to not aggro into that circle, not go there, they just go around it. If your guard so happens to be aggroed onto a survivor after a few seconds have passed, the guard drops a banner, and if the survivor is able to outrun that guard and you and get that banner, they get a boost of speed and they also gain endurance for a few moments. You pretty much turn into an Avenger. If you take a step back and you look at all these things that the Knight has, he has almost everything that works against him. So here's how I would change the Knight. First and foremost, if I have to stop in the middle of what I'm doing to cast a guard, that's completely fine. I know the survivor is going to leave, but at least neglect them the ability to see my waypoint of exactly the pathing of the guard that I'm sending out. Number two, if I want to go ahead and go for the second strategy where I want to go and dump a guard somewhere, don't let them see the radius of where my guard is patrolling. Let that be a surprise for both parties. If behavior wants to keep the banner in the game, where after a certain amount of time after they've been chased, they can go and pick it up, that's going to reward a good survivor for outrunning essentially two of us. That's completely fine. Currently right now, I think survivors have all the visual tools to escape and evade all of your power. Kind of forces you right now just to drop a guard into a tile and say, okay, I don't want you to go here. Let's go somewhere else. Super simple. Suppress all their visuals and where my guards are patrolling are the waypoints that I'm casting, and then I'm okay with that. Leave the banner out there. If they want to go pick it up, let them turn into a superhero. That's completely fine. That's a reward for essentially dodging two of us. Well, my friends, that is all of it. That is going to be all 30 killers and how I would change them. Now, keep in mind, at the end of the day, this is just a fun video, not to be taken too incredibly seriously. These are just some ways that I thought of myself on how I would like to improve or nerf certain killers in the game. At the end of the day, it's just a video game. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you made it to this part of the video, again, thank you so much for spending your time today with me. Make sure to go comment down below. I would love to hear what your changes are on some of your favorite killers. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button, and I hope you guys have a fantastic holiday, and I will catch you on the next one.
Mobbing with my brothers, there's no question, keep it real. Whether we East Coastin' or we in the Haven Hills, in the poppin' straps of blue faces, not the pills. Heard you calling bluffs, I show and prove, yeah, it's for real. Son of God, not a son of Sam. Keep it off the books and keep it coming in.